Right. And Stephanie, are you able to see my screen okay? Okay.
Sure can.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks again, everybody. So we'll go ahead and kick off here and get going. So just wanted to start off just by introducing, some of you may know our consulting team here at Leverage. Wanted to start off by just kind of doing this for those who don't. So we have on our team, first of all, my name is David Nettles. I'm the Vice President of Payments for Leverage. With our team here for our portfolio consultation team, we've got Stephanie Hangy, who you see here on the screen, Jonathan Wright, and Siddharth Kapoor. So we'll be going through today. This is our team to kind of walk through and be able to help you with any questions you have regarding this, as well as any of your payments and processing needs. So I wanted to just to kind of put a face with the names as we go through and kind of kick off from there. All right. So jumping into tokenization mobile wallet. So I know there's probably a wide range of familiarity with this topic. This is something that's been around for quite some time. Basically, what we'll do is kind of go through and just give a little bit of a background. I'll give a background on some of this information just for a refresher for some, if some know more than others. And then from there, we'll look at the journey forward. I'll pass the baton to Stephanie, and then she'll take you on that portion. And then again, we have some time designated for questions and answers following that as well too. All right, so for those that don't know, and if this is a good refresher, so basically from to tokenize something is basically going to be to replace it, something of value with the original item as it notes here. So the digital wallet payments enhance that security. So the whole point of this is not only an ease of use for payments, but also it's a heightened security measure here, in the sense that this unique token is basically replacing the personal account number, or the PAN, so to speak. So when a transaction is processed through a Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay, any of the mobile wallet directives on that, it's basically a secure process. So that unique token is going to be replacing that PAN. So in the event of a breach or something like that happens, it's much easier to contain and control. I often use the example of years ago, for those who remember the Target breach that kind of we used for EMV to justify, would have not done a lot for that. The chip cards wouldn't have, but had tokenization been more prevalent, that's something that could have really stopped the bleeding very early on that, just because those tokens can be killed and the other ones can be done as replacements without that PAN or that personal account number being compromised. So overall, it's a very good for the institution and the credit union as far as the security standpoint, but also, as we'll learn here going forward, it's very important for being that top of wallet mentality, for member loyalty, and basically driving your digital strategy to make sure you're keeping up with within the industry and the expectations. So on how tokenization works, and again, I apologize if this is a refresher for some, but basically here you can see it's a situation where the card, the primary account number, that PAN, it's going to be masked by that single randomized alphanumeric character that I mentioned. It's going to be the same length, which would be that 16-digit number that's going to be that character that's going to be masked. So that masking is what the tokenization would be, and that's what happens in any of your digital or mobile wallet transaction processing. So basically, anytime a transaction is routed at that point, each individual account number is basically going to have that token representing the original confidential information. So that's where it's going to make that more of a secure transaction and process as well. I'm sure most, if not all, of everyone on this call has done some form of a mobile wallet transaction at some point. For those who haven't, it's definitely very convenient as far as payments. I know with the onset of the post-pandemic world, it's become even more of a widespread expectation and need, and also has heightened and increased merchant participation as well too. So it's definitely something that is very prevalent in the industry. I think it took a little while to get going when this originally was rolled out back in 2014, 2015 timeframe. But as we'll see now, it's really making some headway as far as not only the usage and the expectations now, but going forward as well. So the main wallets here that you'll see for the U.S. market, and they're represented here. So you've got the what they call the big three. It would be Apple, Google, and Samsung Pay. There's also your Fitbit Pay and Garmin Pay, which are a little bit more of your niche payments for the active wear users. But a lot of times, like people with Apple Watches and things like that, can still have the same thing. So the Fitbit Pay and Garmin Pay are, like I said, they're much less requested or there's less of a need for that. We do, and through the industry do support that as well. But the big three there being, Apple, which supports any iOS device and transaction, as well as Google and Samsung, which would run on the Android operating system. So, we definitely put this through and make sure that all areas are supported, and we can, also recommend the best strategic approach going forward as well too. So it notes up here as far as the provisioning your card anytime with the Yellow Path support. For those that don't know, Yellow Path support was the process that Google and Android, or Google and Samsung, I should say, through the Android operating system. It was basically to authenticate the first-time user on that. It required somebody to call into a call center. That's where that provisioning for that Yellow Path would be. Apple was the only one at the time that ran what we call Green Path, which would do it in the background, or at least would attempt to run it in the background. And if something went wrong, then the call center option was available for that as well too. To kind of correct this issue, so Google mandated early last year, and the rest of the industry followed suit, to require a one-time passcode authentication. So essentially, this makes it more of a Green Path approach for all. It's still considered Yellow Path because it's not automatic, but it's that one-time passcode that goes to the user, rather than making the cardholder have to call in and spend time on the call center. And that's just an improved situation for the user experience, not having any hold times and things like that, as well as the situation where it's going to their unique mobile device. So you've got some security measures in place there as well. So that's something that's improved over the last 12 to 18 months and has been really well received throughout the industry on that. So again, the important piece here, so tokenization and the mobile wallets and this digital mindset, how this engages your member and really positions your credit union in an approach to be strategically positioned going forward. So you have that, the latest and greatest. You're supporting all the technology, and you're seen as cutting edge from membership on that. So you're staying within the industry and the expectations. So basically, in addition to the heightened security measures that I've kind of touched on briefly before, again, I mentioned that it does lead to greater payment experiences and purchasing experience as well too. So whether it's in store, whether it's in app, or whether it's online purchasing, you have a situation for, like, I'm an Apple user. I've been a Samsung user, so I've done both. But it's basically a two-click option or a biometric option with your face or thumbprint, and it makes the purchasing power extremely simple on that. So you can see here some of the statistics here of, it's a widespread expectation now. This is not something that, 6 or 7 years ago, I think a lot of consumers didn't really understand the mobile wallets, didn't really understand the technology, and were a little distrustful of it. I used to have those conversations with family and friends and would have to kind of reiterate that it was actually safer and it was actually better than your plastic as far as security. I think that's one of the few, I'm an optimist. For those who don't know me, I'm always going to look for the positive in something. So one of the good things out of this whole COVID-19 last few years and all the bad stuff that went with it, I think one of the good things we can derive from that is it did kind of force not only consumers to pay attention to this technology, but also merchants, because that was a problem from your standpoint as being from the credit union, the financial institution space. Is, yeah, you could have been set up with it, but if merchant participation was low and if they didn't have the contactless or the mobile wallet terminals, are your members really getting to utilize that feature? The one good thing about, or one of the good things about the whole issue with the pandemic is that basically forced the merchant's hands. So you've seen a situation now where it's widespread. Stephanie and I and our team, we travel quite extensively, and so we, in sometimes very populated areas, and some places sometimes densely populated areas, and it's pretty much a widespread thing here everywhere we're going. So even my favorite is being the gas station. I know I've been skimmed personally probably 3 times over the course of the last 15, 20 years at gas stations. And the fact that I've yet to really see one recently that doesn't at least offer the Apple Pay or Google Pay component within that to tap, that's a huge differentiator just for me personally, because it's not fun to get your information hacked and having to go through all that. So it's definitely something that really creates, it's going to mitigate that fraud risk, as well as, again, making that an easier process for your members as well. But you see here the numbers are basically confirming what we suspected for a while now, and it's that consumers are not only expecting this, but pretty much demanding this at this point too. So it's really imperative, if this is something that you at your institution has looked at in the past, we recommend highly that this really comes to the forefront, just to make sure you're not left behind your peers and behind your competition on that, to lose any kind of competitive advantage and loyalty for your membership on that. So as we're seeing in the shifts of behavior in here, so this is something that is very interesting. Typically, when we look at anything, whether it's payments related or anything else, there's always a big gap in demographics. You'll say, okay, well, baby boomers are this, and Gen X and millennials are this, and Gen Z is that. This is one of the ones that, and again, I think a lot of this is post-pandemic mindset. It's pretty much consistent across all demographics here. So you're seeing consumers, that younger generation here, that's your older Gen Z and your younger millennial generation, as well as the Gen X and leading into the boomers. It's all, you've got this, 59% is the lowest one, and that's nearly 2/3 on that. So that's a good representation of all demographics are basically, are being utilizing this technology and coming to expect it now. So it's something that I think it's not going to leave anybody behind, and it's something that I think all aspects and all walks of life are pretty much expecting at this point. As we all know, I think phones could probably be surgically attached to our hands and we wouldn't notice, because it's rare that anybody puts them down, whether you're 15 or 55, it doesn't matter. It's pretty much the norm now. So as this goes through, so with the tokenized transactions, so I've gotten questions before, and we've talked about this, like, how are these transactions run? What would this basically be? So it's essentially going to run the same way as a transaction would from a typical card swipe or dip with the chip transactions. So it ideally can be set to a signature situation, because that's not going to require a PIN, which truly makes it contactless. And it also is better for interchange income earning capability for the credit union side. There are some merchants who will still force it to be a PIN, where you do the tap and you still have to enter that in above certain transactions. So the merchant controls that, but it does increase the likelihood of it running as a signature, which is better, again, from a financial standpoint for the credit union side, as well as just that true contactless experience that the members will have, and making that transaction really faster and just much more seamless than the previous card transactions. So again, with the comparison here between the PAN, or the primary account number transactions, you can see here that when it's completed, it's basically utilizing that static account number, expiration, CVV. That's all utilized to put that through. Whereas a token transaction, you see basically here that, again, it's going back to that masking situation. So that token replaces that PAN. So it's a unique 16 character alphanumeric that replaces that. So which again increases the heightened security and fraud mitigation on that as well. So before we go any further, I didn't see any questions so far in the chat. I just wanted to remind everybody, if you have anything, feel free to speak up. We will have some time at the end as well too. But yeah, if you see anything come through, I'll be kind of minding those as we go forward. But from this point, we're going to kind of look at how cardholder behavior is kind of going forward, and what we're seeing as the future sense. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Stephanie to complete the second half here. And again, we're happy to answer any questions that come up as well too.
Great, thanks, David. When we're thinking about the behavior and the digital first mindset, I think that you really want to be thinking about the opportunity that's coming ahead. What consumers are expecting right now. They desire it. They want the security. They want the timing. They want the ease. Those are all the driving factors in that digital first mindset. And, when you think about the value of tokenization in the market now, and how that changed because of the pandemic, whoever would have thought, an illness would change consumer behaviors and how we paid for things. But tokenization's net worth is projected to be $4.8 billion by 2025, in just a few years. And then by 26, it's anticipated to exceed $5.2 billion. So that's a 53% growth from last year. So if you're not offering tokenization, this is the time to really be learning about it, absorbing it, and talking to your members and understanding what they want, because this is what's going to drive the growth in your portfolios, your debit portfolios, your credit card portfolios. David, when you were talking about security and you said better than plastic, it's like, oh my gosh, that's a whole new acronym. It's BTP, better than plastic, because we all want our portfolios to be secure. We want to minimize our fraud losses. And this is it. This is the piece that's going to take care of the mitigating fraud losses for you. However, you all want to be growing. You all want to be capturing more transactions. We know that payments are the path to member relationships. And when you know that a product service enhancement is going to help you in that growth, it's no longer really considered an enhancement. It's table stakes. You can't have a credit card or a debit card program without a card, right? Without the 16-digit PAN, the personal identification number. You really going forward can't have it without tokenizations. It's table stakes. You really have to have it. You need to understand that there's the expectation and what your members are already looking for, in the sense of, I opened a new account online, how quickly I want that to happen. We're in that now generation, that now time of, I want it now. I'm Veruca and I want it now. I don't want to wait. And you think about, for some of us who've worked in the financial service industry a very long time, some of you might remember there was a period where financial institutions closed at a certain time of the day, like 2 o'clock, I think. And any transactions done after 2 o'clock were the next day's business. So for any of you people, any of our attendees who are not familiar with this, just go ask the historian where you work, because that's the expectation of, I want it now. I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to wait for something to reopen tomorrow. I'm not going to wait to have it. I want it now. And so tokenization and that growth is where you're going to get it with tokenizing your debit and credit card portfolios. We can go on, David, please. Unless you want to add anything else here?
Nope,
Perfect.
You're good.
All right. So knowing the expectations of what consumers want, 75% of consumers expect real-time transactions in seconds. We don't want to wait. If I've got a ride share coming, I'm looking at my app, I'm tracking to see where that ride is. If I've got an Uber Eats coming, same thing. I'm constantly looking. Amazon, I'm so mad. I don't get everything in 2 days anymore. I might have to wait a little bit longer, but I still don't want to go to the store because I can't find it. I might have to go to 5 stores. I sit at my TV pushing my remote control, and why is my Netflix taking so long to load? And oh my gosh. Well, back in the day, we used to have to get up and walk across the shag carpet to turn the channel, but everything's changed. We don't want that anymore. Consumers want that instant gratification, and tokenization supports that mindset while giving security. And we know that consumers really look to their financial providers to protect them, and we will, but we want to also mitigate any losses, and that's done through the token technology. Consider a few statistics for you. 25% of people worldwide use mobile payments, and that's going to increase to 33% next year in 24. 43% of smartphone users in the US use mobile payments. I can pay for food, I can get Uber Eats, I can order Instacart, I can do everything on my phone. I can be sitting on my phone, on my couch, watching Netflix at night, scrolling, shopping online, make a purchase. Nobody in my living room knew I had to do that because I just click the side of my phone to make a transaction. It's convenient, it's secure, it's a great member experience as well. When you think about all the pays that we saw on one of the previous slides that David had, with Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, Fit Pay, Garmin Pay, 43.9 million Americans use Apple Pay. So Apple Pay is the predominant pay. There might be more Samsung phones in use, but when you look at the actual usage of those payment types, tokenization, it's Apple Pay. So Apple Pay is your reigning line you want to go down and consider and look at. And the number of US mobile payment users in the US has increased from 92.3 million 2 years ago to 108 million. And we know a lot of that's because of the pandemic, but it changed and it's not going back. Nobody's saying, I want to go back and start using my plastic card places. We want to continue to have that convenience that the on-demand, getting it in seconds offers to us. So digitally driven opportunities for you, account activation, digital issuance. So if you are an issuer thinking, I'd like to have digital issuance as a offering to my cardholders, I maybe don't want to have to give them a hard card plastic when they first come in and open the account. I want to do digital issuance. You actually have to have tokenization first. So it's important that you understand, the strategy of this. It goes beyond payments. It's leading to account activation, and it's connecting with your members in a way and their growing financial needs, because we need to be able to offer that and know about it, and not necessarily be an early adopter, but be part of the team, the environment, the landscape that is offering this to your members. I want to pause to see, I don't see any comments in the chat. Please, I'd love to hear questions that you might have on a particular slide. Any thoughts on digital issuance from anyone? Anyone considering doing that? Or I don't know, you could unmute and say a question, but not seeing anything yet, so we'll keep going. All right. So token provisioning, David's talked a little bit about this in the past and how it's done, but a token can be provisioned in several ways. It can be manual through the device, the card on file with the merchant. It can also be a push notification from the app to the device to the wallet. It can be done a variety of ways in terms of with MasterCard and Visa and the enrolled account, the account issuer's approval, and then it goes to the issuing network to replace the PAN. So imagine that 16-digit account number and that transaction process, the 16-digit PAN gets converted to a token, and then it's token digital payment for the token provisioning. David, did you want to add anything to that? I feel like I said the word token 10 times in the last 20 seconds.
No, you're good.
Okay.
So basically with that, I mean, with the provisioning, so Visa or MasterCard, any of the major issuing networks, they had this set up as a requirement for, and again, it's going back in with that tokenized unique alphanumeric to replace that PAN. So it's that process. It's basically set up in that. There's also a situation where for provisioning, like notification that the wallets and the pays require as well, and that's something that can be done. I know it can be done at the institution level, and it's just basically communications that can be sent saying they were correctly enrolled. But as far as the provisioning itself, it's Visa and MasterCard and any of the networks on that are set up to have everything with the pays for the provisioning. So a lot of this is kind of background info that as you implement and move forward, this is all part of that setup. And again, it's a background running kind of thing once you're live.
Hey, David, one of our attendees sent a private chat to me that I think the chat feature is disabled. So I don't know if you are able to enable it.
I apologize.
So, sorry, we keep saying send us a chat. We had it turned off. So thank you. Otherwise, you can send individual chats, or I think you could unmute your phone and ask. So
yeah.
Let's pause for a moment, and I'm just going to call Eric out. Thank you, Eric, for letting me know that the chat was disabled. Did you have a specific question that you wanted to ask now in the chat or verbally?
Okay, it should be open now. So I apologize, everyone. I thought that was a preset, and that's my mistake. So apologize for that.
There we go. Let's see. Do we have one open? No. Okay, we'll just keep going on. We'll have a time for chat in a minute. Okay, thank you. We can go to the next slide, David. So the step-up authentication, this is a bit of what David was talking about earlier, and how the various pays had things set up for different pathways that you could go to. Formerly, Apple Pay was the only mobile wallet provider to offer the green path authentication. So when you're authenticating the credentials of that card holder, there is the security of knowing, oh, Stephanie Hangy is my member. She is the one who has set this up. All looks good. This is a green path. I'm going to go on. If there's any concerns that it might not have been Stephanie Hangy, I might have gone down a different path. But they used to all require the call center, which the recent mandate David mentioned earlier is Google Pay, a digital one-time passcode. Another acronym to know, OTP, must be set up for mobile wallets to ensure that the green path authentication is available. So it really gives a better experience for the member. When I was working for an issuer back in 2014, we were implementing Apple Pay and Samsung Pay and Google Pay. We were an early adopter, and it was a clunky process, So, if you've not adopted yet, you've let all those other issuers get through the clunkiness of it and making it a little bit better for you as well. All right. David, anything else you want to offer on that? Okay, great. Okay, so anything back there?
No, go ahead. Sure.
So I think, you know, as I shared some of the statistics a bit earlier of where the trajectory of the growth of tokenization transactions are going, you need to know those are the transactions that were formerly done in a card present situation. So if you're not offering tokenization, you're not going to capture the expansion of those transactions, and you might see a decline in your transaction growth or just in your portfolio overall. And knowing that's not what most issuers want is a decline, they want to grow. And since tokenization is expanding, whether it's in store, in app, in browser, card on file, that's where you really have to focus strategically your conversations of what you're going to do this year and beyond. It's really a prerequisite. Getting them set up, it's table stakes in a program. You can't have a credit card program without cards as an issue as a financial institution. Does anybody not have online banking? I mean, that used to be optional a long time ago, but can you imagine not having online banking? So really thinking about a payments program, you can't imagine a successful growing payments program without tokenization. In store, the biometrics, there's Palm Pay coming out. I'm not sure what I think about Palm Pay. I have embraced, you know, facial recognition for things, so I guess I should go with Palm Pay as well. But you know, you think about all the biometrics that are coming and being used and how consumers are embracing those. It's really important for you to see the immediate need to start talking about where this fits in with your strategy. David, I don't know if you want to insert any other thoughts on this, one of our last slides here.
Yeah, and it's I mean, basically with the expansion of that, I think Stephanie hit the nail right on the head on that. It's basically this, with the future of this, I mean, it's kind of a foundational solution here, a foundational element here. We mentioned earlier, I know Stephanie mentioned the digital issuance piece and this being a prerequisite, and with, you know, all of the biometrics tying into it. So this is truly a foundational piece. It's going to drive into several other options going forward as well too. And we did get a question here from Patrick regarding marketing. So Patrick asked, and I'll go ahead and take this now, that what marketing materials are available for notifying and explaining tokenization to the members. So we do have several options on that. Stephanie, do you want to speak to that, or do you want me to take that?
Go ahead, you got it.
Okay. Yeah, so with that, I mean, with Leverage itself, we can assist with that for our member institutions that we can help provide marketing with that. We have those resources. I know that there are also some marketing resources within the processors and things, but that's something as your payments partner as well, we can assist with helping put together some marketing and communication available just to go forward. The good news, Patrick, is that the messaging for this is much easier now than it would have been 4 or 5 years ago, because at that point, like I mentioned, I used to pull my hair out trying to talk to my own family, saying like, why don't you guys use this? And I don't trust it. And that's really kind of gone by the wayside. I think everybody really, for the most part, is aware of this now and kind of trusting of this technology. So I think the main piece of the marketing would be, you know, just basically making sure members are aware that it is available and they can do that. And that's where, you know, that's important, because it is, you know, the sooner that can be loaded in, then that gets you top of wallet on the digital wallet as well too. So top of wallet is always going to be good. You want your members taken care of in all aspects and being able to use your payment vehicle on that. So long-winded answer, we do have resources that can help with that. And, you know, we can work with you and provide a customized, tailored solution for you on that. Sorry, I get to talking.
I know it's
I actually enjoy the topic, everybody. So sorry about that.
We could talk all day.
Exactly.
So, you know, instant issue, just that journey, that digital journey, instant issue cards allow usage and access immediately. The card can then be tokenized in a wallet. So imagine being that excellent account opening experience for your member who's maybe, you know, coming in, they may be new to your community. It's really just being able to walk out and use it in the way that you want them to, the method, and getting it embedded in other wallets so that you can make secure transactions and you can be set up for the future growth. Very important on that.
Absolutely. And I do in the chat here a little while ago as well too. Eric had mentioned that they are going to be adding tokenization this year at their credit union as well too. For the issuance piece, I'm not sure how many people, maybe we had a recent webinar in November that kind of discussed digital issuance and how that's set up. I was kind of curious if anybody in the chat or if you want to come off mute, if that's something you're looking at as well too, to kind of combine those two, or if that's been something that's been a go forward initiative at the credit union level as well too for that digital issuance piece. If anybody has, feel free to let us know.
I just would really, like to make sure everybody understands whether your credit union's offering it or not, your members are probably using it.
Absolutely.
They probably have another secondary financial institution that they're using, that they have tokenization through, but that other secondary financial institution most likely will become their primary institution if you don't offer tokenization, because it doesn't give your cardholder the ability to make their purchases in the convenient, quick, secure way that consumers are looking for.
Yeah, that's a great point, Stephanie. And also just to kind of piggyback onto that, the actual statistic, the percentage is escaping me at the moment, but it's a significant number as far as when a cardholder loads in their card into one of the mobile wallets, whether Apple, Google, Samsung, whatever the case may be. Typically that first card they load in there is going to be the default primary card, and you have the ability, and it's very easy to change the pecking order of how those cards are done. If I have 3 cards in my mobile wallet, I can differentiate which one is my default card. But and again, I don't want to just make up a statistic, but it's a high number of percentage that first card loaded. If somebody's beating you to the punch on that, it's tough to get your card to be default on that. So you could be losing transactional income as well too. So that is an important piece.
So when we send the deck out, we'll find out.
Yeah.
Or if somebody else is already Googling it, let us know. But you think about how that correlates to the first checking account a consumer opens, and how long they keep that and add a direct deposit. Those become those lifetime long products and services. Your members might add others, but they go back to that primary one. I still have the checking account that I opened when I got my first job as a teller at a bank. It's where my husband puts his direct deposit, so it works very well, but we still have it and we use it very regularly, but we've got secondary products and services. So I think, David, when you're talking about loading that card and how it becomes the top of glass, so you think about the phone, and being the glass, it's not top of wall, top of glass. It almost correlates to that first checking account consumers open as well, and the longevity and the retention that you have from that.
Absolutely. All right. So we did, So we did get a couple of questions come through on the private chat when I had that, when that was done before, and I apologize again for not having that open. One of the questions that came through, and I can take this one, Stephanie, it's how much time and efforts are required by the credit union to implement. So essentially with that, if a project's initiated on that, once that is submitted, there's a little bit of paperwork that has to be completed for, to account for Visa or MasterCard and the actual wallet itself. So for instance, I'll use Apple Pay because that's that, lion's share of the market right now for the mobile wallets. They have basically like a one-page kind of authorization to use. But other than that, it's a very streamlined process. It's very minimal time or efforts required for the credit union or institutional level on that. A lot of this is set up once it's ready to go, there's some testing involved, but it's very minimal compared to other projects you've done. So it is something I want to make sure everybody's aware of, that it's not something that's going to, I know a lot of you all have to wear a lot of hats, and project and time and resource hours are more valuable than gold. So it's accounting for that and making sure it's not going to overload any kind of initiatives with other things. It is something, again, we can't stress enough that it is important to have. I think that at this point it's table stakes, like Stephanie said, and it's pretty much an expectation. But the good news is it's not something that would require a ton of effort or a lot of time to implement. It's a lot of it's done on the back end side for you. So if that's a concern for anybody else too, then that's something I think that should be alleviated on that. New cards have to be issued from Kimberly. No, it's actually, that's the beauty of it. So, and that's also where the digital issuance part goes in as well too. So for the tokenization mobile wallets, I've got my plastic, I load my card in, and it's my actual card is loaded into my wallet on that. And again, when it's used, that's when that unique token is used. But that technology prevents it from having to do any kind of reissuance. It's just the existing card is loaded in, and at that point it can be used, and it's got that higher security. If it's something, if you look at the digital issuance component, that's something as well too, that let's say you got a brand new member who's just opening up an account, or somebody may have lost their card or something like that. Then if you have that digital issuance set up, that would be a digital version of an instant issue, basically. So you could have that card loaded into their mobile wallet while their physical card is being mailed. So if you don't have instant issue capabilities for plastics at your location, then with this, you would essentially, they'd be able to walk out of your credit union, make purchases with, Apple, Google, Samsung Pay, mobile wallets while their card is coming. So it's really a great touch point and really a differentiator for that member satisfaction as well.
Yeah, just to add a little bit more information on, why the cards don't have to be reissued. It's through the tokenization project, the actual bin that your cards are in, that bin is enabled. So it's not necessarily that a card is enabled, it's the bin and the cards in that bin that are enabled through a tokenization implementation project.
Yeah, that's a great point. And thank you for filling that in, because I should have mentioned that. But yeah, so that point, once your bin is tokenized, then yeah, any card that's issued from that is eligible to be loaded into a mobile wallet at that point, which is good. It's basically setting you up so it's an easy process. Speaking of that, I had another one come through, Stephanie. I'll let you take this one if you want. It's how does this differ from the contactless plastics, and is there one strategy recommended over the other?
Great question. We hear the word contactless a lot, and contactless can mean the tokenization, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, and Google Pay. It can mean, Palm Pay when it comes out, but really, I think when most people say in contactless, they're talking about the tap and go cards that have near field communication, where you hold the card near a merchant terminal that's enabled for near field communication. So, when you are thinking about your strategy for growth and competitiveness in your program, you can think about, obviously really hardly think about tokenization, and really that needs to be done. But then you've also got the thought of tap and go contactless. So tokenization, really have to do it. Contactless tap and go cards, they are cool, and consumers do like them, and you might have board members saying, I'm seeing a lot of commercials about these, we should do it. It can be a little more expensive to implement, and then it does require new cards, because you have to have the antenna for the near field communication, for the actual tap, for the transaction to go. It's also a safer transaction. So it really just depends on budgets that you might have, how big is your card base, what's your strategy for growth. When I talk to credit unions, my conversations really are, if you want to be the cool kid on the block, then let's get tap and go contactless cards. It's great, it's cool. However, the growth is in tokenization and token transactions. And I cannot use a tap and go card in an online environment. I can't use that when I'm sitting on my couch watching Netflix. I'm not going to be doing that technology. I'm going to be using tokenization. So it's really of more, what's your appetite and your budget that you have. And if you've got a really big budget, it's unlimited, then let's do some tap and go cards. But at minimum, you need to do tokenization. Hope
Absolutely.
That answers the question.
Yeah, and those are great points. And I want to reiterate Stephanie's point that she made too about, those contactless cards, as great as they are for enhanced security, they do nothing when you're ordering something from the couch or whatever, like she mentioned, because if you're doing a card not present or an e-commerce transaction with a contactless card, it's the same thing as it would be with a regular card. You're putting in the account or the card number, the CVV, the expiration. So that's that data that is more, security threat. With the tokenized, with the mobile wallet, I think Stephanie mentioned earlier, it's just, the double tap and it goes through. That processes a tokenized transaction. So it is safer in that regard from the card not present e-commerce online transactions as well. So it's good. If that's something that anybody is interested in, we can also help with those discussions. I do want to make sure everybody's aware if you do look at contactless, if you want to have both, again, we recommend the mobile wallets first and foremost. But if you do want to have both as a strategy, there's no requirement to do a mass reissue on those plastics for contactless. You can do that as a natural expiration. Some choose to do it all at once. And so, if they're doing, if they have any kind of initiative going forward, a lot of times institutions will just kind of do that at natural reissue. So it's kind of spreads out the costs. They're not absorbing all that at once. So again, different topic, but just want to make sure everybody's aware of that because that's a pretty common question. Let's see. Do we have to implement all the mobile wallets? And if not, which ones are recommended? So with that, it's not a requirement to implement all that. You can implement one or you can implement all. Basically, our recommendation, it would be at a minimum to do Apple and Google. And the reason being is because Samsung and Google both run on the Android operating system. So, and as I mentioned before, I'm currently an Apple iPhone user, but I used to have a Samsung. So I didn't even realize this until I had a Samsung, but when you get that device, it comes preloaded with both Google Pay and Samsung Pay, just because it's running on that Android operating system. Whereas Apple is exclusively Apple only. Apple's very, they're not, they don't play nice with others as far as that goes. It's just they're only one in there. I think there's some talk of that could be changing at some point, but I think if you're looking at, all right, we want to make sure we offer this, but we also want to, make sure we're not spending more than we have to and are being value conscious on that. Our recommendation will be Apple because obviously the iPhones and the iOS is your lion's share on that. But to make sure nobody's left out or excluded, then I think Google would be if you had to pick another one on there for a secondary. Those two would cover pretty much everybody on that. If you want to have everything out there loaded, that's fine. But with those two, it should go forward without excluding any members on that from being able to use it. Any other questions? I don't see anything else. Those are our direct chat ones, but I don't see anything else in the main one. Anybody else have any? I know Eric had mentioned earlier that they're going to be rolling out tokenization this year. Has this been a talk for anybody else on the line that is a 2023 initiative to move forward on? Kimberly, you are as well. That's great news. Yeah. And as I said before too, if anybody on the line, again, this is very high level, but we can break this down very, a lot more specifically and kind of get, aligned within your direction and your strategy. So if you have a relationship or any of the consultants that were introduced on the slide, whether it be Stephanie, Jonathan, or Siddharth, or myself, we can do that. But we also have a general team email that we all receive that it's on this deck, and I'll make sure it's provided to all you as well. So if it's something where, hey, you want, pick our brains on something, or we get some recommendations, or, if it's something that if you partner with us and you're like, hey, I'd like to look at a proposal for this, or whatever the case may be, we're here to help on that. And just, even if it's just a strategic discussion, that's what we live for and that's what we enjoy. So we want to make sure we're there to help you guys out as much as possible. Any other questions or thoughts, concerns? Anybody else have any other plans for any of these technologies?
I also just kind of wonder if anybody's has a barrier internally to get the buy-in for it. If anybody, any of our attendees have wanted to implement it and you're running into any internal barriers at your credit union to get the buy-in, the budget, if you need any kind of help of how to continue that conversation, if you need some statistics, or if you need like a 20-minute consultation, having one of us on our team join a call with people at the credit union, happy to do so to help you overcome that barrier.
Yep, absolutely. So again, if there's no other questions, like I said, feel free to speak up. We're happy to help. If there's no other questions, what we'll do is, again, we will send a copy of both the deck and the recording here, so you can, if there's anybody at your institutions that wasn't able to attend that you think would benefit from looking at this information, then certainly feel free to share. We'll make that available. I mentioned before our team's overall email here. If you have any questions or anything we can help with, it's right here on the screen. And again, this will be I'll provide it to you as well. But we certainly appreciate everyone's time. I know your time is very valuable, especially this time of the year. It's the end of the year and other things are crazy. So we certainly appreciate and are humbled by your presence on that. So I want to thank everybody for your time, and Stephanie and I and the team really appreciate your partnership on this.
Thank you. Bye, David. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.